Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay. Never comes again, another day like yesterday. Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.
Hey everybody, I have a podcast episode that I want to do that might sound simple, but it came really, really clear in my head just within the last hour. And to be honest with you, man, it really resolved a lot of internal cognitive dissonance and conflict for me. And let me give you the whole context, right? Right now, we're all struggling with the state of the world, and we're struggling with, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of cruelty, there's a lot of shenanigans going on. The U.S. may be collapsing, it may not. Previous alliances are collapsing, new alliances are being created. Maybe financial systems are collapsing. Like, there's a lot of scary stuff going on. But at the same time, we can look back at human history and go, well, this has always been true. I mean, the world's always been a mess. There have always been people, assaulting one another. I mean, it used to be the norm that if one kingdom took over another kingdom, attacked it, and succeeded, it was just a given that they were going to slaughter the men, rape the women, and keep the children as slaves, right? The most horrific brutality and cruelty was just the norm. And so you can look at what's happening right now and go, maybe Americans are just wimps, or maybe why are we so deeply disturbed by what's going on now? And something clarified for me when someone asked me a question and I responded, trying to be real concrete about how to approach a situation. And I realized that how to approach a situation simplifies an enormous number of spiritual messages, political messages, what a lot of people are feeling right now, what I'm feeling right now, and the way to resolve it. And the spiritual message is, there are a lot of people going off of the Chinese New Year who say that there's a lot of people experiencing shedding right now because we're headed into a new way of being. And so people are experiencing a lot of chaos and depression and anxiety, and because they're shedding old things, and you should just let go of it. And I got to be really honest with you, I've experienced a ton of that in the last couple of months. Like a startling level where I almost feel spun and bewildered about, I don't even know who I am right now. It seems like everything's up in the air. In the larger spiritual message that comes from spiritual leaders, not me, I believe it, but I'm not a spiritual leader, is that we're headed into an era in which the levels of control, being transactional about humans, about living beings, using living beings to serve our own needs and conveniences, these things that are actually incredibly immoral and created an enormous amount of suffering and pain that we've just taken as normal. It's like, that's just kind of the way things go. I think there's a raising of consciousness, and people take that as a very woo-woo statement, right? Oh, you're raising. It's like, it doesn't have to mean some spiritual woo-woo thing. It just literally means no longer being able to bullshit yourself about how you participate in really cruel, anti-human, anti-life behaviors. You can agree or not agree, but eating meat from industrial sources, you're just participating in something that just has a stunning level of everyday cruelty and torture of other living beings. You're just normalizing that, right? And there are many different ways. Our political systems, the United States, how white America has just sort of hemmed and hawed and, paid lip service to racial disparities and cruelty and targeting of black folks in our country. That's just been the norm since the beginning of the country, and just pretending like, well, but that was over, but it was kind of a mistake, but there's mealy mouthing that bullshit. our ability to bullshit ourselves is, so if consciousness is raising, our ability to bullshit ourselves is ending for a lot of us, right? I had a come to Jesus moment a couple months ago when I was really struggling and really suffering and feeling really depressed and trying to figure out who am I and what am I doing, as I realized that there were a lot of things that I knew morally and ethically that I knew that I'd known since I was a kid that society signed off on, and I had through low self-esteem and just being a kid and internalizing what authority said, I had signed off on shit that I knew was wrong and that I had always known that was wrong. One of those examples I've given multiple times is working at a veterinarian clinic. It was my job to take skin scrapings and to look at, you take the skin scraping and you put it in this oil and put it between two slides and look at it in the microscope, and you'd see these ugly alien little life forms, microscopic life forms that were causing the dog's mange, its itchy skin. And then you would give it a dip, a chemical dip that would kill that. And I was busy, so I put a slide on and I sort of took a look and identified what it was, and I went away and came back 10 or 15 minutes, and the light shining up through the slide had increasingly heated the oil, and I suddenly saw these frantic, startling, desperate movements from this ugly alien-looking creature. And it's like, I know what that is. Like, people can bullshit all they want, and there's all kinds of these people that are like, don't anthropomorphize, and it's just a primitive nervous system, so it might be acting that way, but it's probably not feeling what humans feel. Shut up. I'm sick of the stupidity, the childlike delusional need to lie to yourself so that you don't have to deal with what's the truth right in front of you, that if you burn a dog alive and it's screaming and yelping and desperately trying to get away from the fire, that there's any difference, any moral difference between that and burning a human alive. Shut the fuck up. Stop playing games. It's not confusing. It was never confusing. Okay, so I have my soapbox, but let me bring it back to me. I realized I had ethically and morally known things my entire life, and that adults and moral leaders had been full of shit, and or evidently their conscious level for that thing wasn't there. It wasn't where mine was. And so I knew it was wrong. I knew what was right and wrong. And I knew that sitting there and letting this little creature die in a torturous death, being slowly cooked in oil, was a horrific thing to do. Doesn't matter that it's ugly. Doesn't matter that you relate to it or you don't. That's a stupid, childish system for deciding whether it's okay to torture something to death or not. That's just stupid. It's like, if you need to discuss that, if you need someone to explain that to you, just go away, because there are many of us that are done with those stupid conversations. And that doesn't mean we want to have some super woo-woo, ultra militant, liberal, left-wing overreaction, because that overreaction often is just them virtue signaling and being full of shit and inflicting as much pain and damage on living beings as anybody else, but then they want to posture and act like they're morally superior to the extreme right, and they're not. They're full of shit, right? So I had to have a come to Jesus moment and realize over the last couple months, there are things that I know that I'm actually more immoral and psychopathic than other people, because I know that I know. I know that industrial production of meat is a process of torture and misery, and it's not healthy for you for any reason. I know that hunting meat for food is far more humane and healthy. I know that. I know that it doesn't matter how ugly, like you shouldn't go, oh, I would never torture a puppy, but you'd torture a worm in a heartbeat. That's fucking stupid. That's silly. So I've known that my entire life. And as I addressed in another episode, the reason we often avoid these moral conundrums is because we don't know what to do. Like I'm not going to stop driving my car because it kills insects. Like, maybe I should, but right. So I had to have a come to Jesus moment with myself and go, well, I'm morally angry at the world, but I'm full of shit. For whatever reason, I happen to be born knowing those things. And I knew it when I saw it. Right? Okay. So I won't review all of that stuff, but come back to the basic message. The thing that went click, I get it. Is I was explaining to someone, a lot of times we feel a lot of fatigue, we feel inner conflict, we feel cognitive dissonance. And we blame ourselves, or we go, well, people are human, and I don't know why this person tires me out, and they have basically good intentions, and they're just human, and blah 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 blah. We do this shit with ourselves, we do this shit with other people. But the truth is, there's a simple equation that you can run that clarifies everything that's happening in the world right now. It clarifies any relationship you have to yourself, to other people, to other living beings, to anything in reality. This clarifies. It doesn't give you an answer for what you should do or how you should do it, right? But it clarifies what a thing is. What a thing is. And that's this. In relationship to self, but that can be more complex. So let's say in relationship to other people. There's a simple equation you should run. And that is, you have two things. Everyone has an energy, a basic way of being, an energetic state in general. That might get thrown here and there. They have a bad day, like whatever. But people have a basic energetic state that drives all of their behaviors. And it may drive their language, right, if you pay attention. But it drives all their behaviors, and people's behaviors can't lie. Sooner or later, with time, you begin to see people's true energy and true intentions. Who was it? Was it Maya Angelou who said, when people tell you who they are, believe them? I don't think she was talking about language. She was talking about their behavior towards you. When you keep getting a really negative outcome, stop pretending that they're accidentally doing it. Believe them. They don't have good intentions towards you. Just believe them. Stop playing games, right? So people have this basic energy, and that basic energy and energetic way of being drives all of their behaviors. And so there are going to be behavioral patterns, and their energy and their behavioral patterns are going to accrue and add up to a lived experience for them and a lot of people around them. If you choose to have an intimate relationship with that person, their behavior is going to create a lived experience, and there's going to be concrete accretions based on their behaviors, right? Someone with a sloppy, misdirected energy will create a sloppy, confusing, cluttered environment. It's not confusing, right? They're telling you who they are and how they function and what their energetic level is. Okay, let's add language. Language can be used many ways. There's a lot of art, there's a lot of beauty. But what's interesting is language is abstract by its very nature. I can say the word rock is concrete. It means a specific concrete thing. But the vibration of my voice and how I shape that sound is an abstract symbol that if you speak English, you understand that I'm indicating this heavy, dense thing created by geological processes, a rock. But the word rock isn't a rock. It's an abstract symbol by which we agree that it refers to the specific thing. Okay? Rock. So language by its very nature is an abstract, symbolic representation of reality. And thus, what is inherent to it is people can use it with a high level of intention and fidelity. They can take their energy And they can take their behaviors and they can do everything they can to use language so that it as accurately as possible reflects their actual behaviors and their actual intentions, so that their language is a pretty good symbolic representation of how they express and the way they act and how they treat other people and what they create. And that's important. Then there are people who use language to create realities that give them permission to avoid taking responsibility for what they actually create. Let me give you a couple concrete examples. You can have someone, I've known people like this, they're inherently a little bit negative bias, pretty cynical. All of their joking is sort of sarcastic and cynical, and they're a little bit mildly chronically depressed and blah, blah, blah. And that's how they work. That's just what it is. And if you're like, wow, man, you're pretty cynical, like that can get a little heavy, they'll be like, yeah, I know, like you're not wrong. That's true, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's a fidelity. You can feel like, I don't like how you are as a person. I think you should behave differently. It would be good for you and other people around you. I might even decide I don't want to be around you because I don't want that energy. But that person is not lying about who they are. They're not using language to lie about who they are and to lie about the energy that they bring to reality. And they're not using it to construct some false reality that they want people to perceive them as and relate to them as, so they can get credit for something they haven't created. And so that they can deny for other people and themselves what they actually create. So there are those people who use language to create a false sense of reality. And they do it for a couple reasons. One, sometimes they're deeply confused about what they're actually creating. And they're deeply in denial. They're ashamed of what they actually create, and they're deeply in denial, and they won't even admit to themselves what they actually create. And so they create something they want to be true about them, and they use language to present that as a reality. There are also people who are just not really ethical people, and language is just a thing that they use to manipulate. They don't even feel bad. Like, they don't think of that as a bad thing. They think everybody's doing that. I just say whatever it takes for me to elicit the things out of reality that I want. And I don't care if what I say actually reflects my basic energy, my basic way of being, and my patterns of behaviors that actually create a reality for myself and for people around me. I don't care whether that's a match. I just want what I want. Okay? A concrete example of this would be, sorry, used car salespeople, I'm sure many of you are good. It's a stereotype, but let's just use the stereotype, okay? Doesn't need to be reality. Let's just use a stereotype. Some used car dealer buys a vehicle that's just a lemon. They know it, man. This thing is just a pile of crap, and they just polish it up, and they try to put it together and make it run as well as it will, and not only do they not reduce the price, but they actually elevate the price, and they polish it up, and they put a nice set of tires on it. And when someone comes in to purchase a vehicle, it catches their eye, and they're like, wow, that's a nice looking vehicle. It's a salesperson like, oh yeah, this is like one of the best cars on the lot, and it's a beautiful vehicle. It's got brand new tires, and it's been through a 52-point inspection or a 100-point inspection, and it was almost flawless. Like, the people who sold it to us, we paid a lot of money, and we're just trying to make a little bit of money to recoup. We probably spent too much for it, and well, let's take a ride, and nothing goes on wrong on the ride. And this salesperson like adds another couple fees on top. We have the lot fee, and we have this fee, and blah, blah, blah. And they're just straight raping that customer and lying to them. And they're doing it because the dealership wants the money. And the salesperson wants the commission, and they want a big commission. And they don't give a shit that they're fundamentally lying about the state of that car. The state of that car is a very broken down, very worn down car that was actually in a collision, and they didn't disclose that. And the engine is actually in really poor repair, and it needs new struts, and the brakes are not doing well, like they're just good enough, but they need to be replaced, blah, blah, blah. That's the reality of that vehicle. And those people are just straight out lying. They're just lying because they want money. They have an agenda. So they're using language, and they're trying to create an experience for the customer that communicates to the customer a truth that, or an experience that is simply not real. It doesn't exist. They're fundamentally lying, right? Because they want something. They have an agenda. They want something. Okay, that's an extreme example. Advertising is allowed to do that shit all the time. Almost nothing that is said in advertising actually has much relationship to the truth of anything. What they're trying to do is elicit an emotional response that will make you want to give up your money. Now, if they have some fidelity with their product and they actually intend something, like they don't want to get caught out where everyone in the world who purchases their product is like, oh my God, these people are full of crap and this is just shit. This medicine not only doesn't work, it makes you sicker. Well, mostly people don't want to do that. So they have to maintain some fidelity, right? So you have your basic energetic state. You have, and that drives behaviors and patterns of behaviors that create accumulations of realities and accretions of realities that you experience and that other people experience. And that's what's true for you, and that's what you're responsible for. And then there's language, and you can use language to the best of your ability to try to reflect what's true about you. And you can try to be honest with people so that they have some idea of how to access you, and so that there aren't things hidden, right? So when I interact with people at a profound level, like I have to own, one of my challenges is that I developed through a lot of pain and low self-esteem and, right, a clear ethical knowledge that I started to have a real moral arrogance and ethical arrogance that I had to begin owning, that it's like, no, I'm unethical too. I'm full of shit, right? I had to own that. And so the tendency, the bias is there, and that was modeled for me by my father. The bias is there, but you can be a human being, right? And go, yeah, I have a bias, like unconsciously every once in a while you'll see this moral arrogance come out. But if I go, you know what? I feel like what I said had some of that moral arrogance, and I have to be careful with that. And I want you to know that that's a thing with me, right? That I can begin to speak with a certain amount of moral arrogance, but it really comes out of a deeply wounded self-esteem due to some really traumatic events I experienced with my parents and in my childhood, right? Okay, so that's language. I just used language to share with you that I have a bias that you should clock if you interact with me, right? So language can either be used with fidelity to try as much as possible at a complex level, reflect your energy, your patterns of behavior, where that you hope that contributes, what it is, what your own needs are, what you expect from other people, et cetera, sort of like the whole thing, your whole experience. You can spend your life trying to use language as a tool to reflect that so that people have a way to access you, who and how you really are. And then there are people who are profoundly unaware of their patterns. They either can't or are unwilling to really look at their patterns and go, oh, there's a pattern. And then that creates these accretions of realities and outcomes that other people experience. But they've created some bullshit about themselves that they want to believe because they can't deal with how ashamed they feel of their actual patterns, right? So they've created that. And so language is then used to literally deny what's true and to deny what they actually create. And then there are people who are just out and out manipulators who know that they're not telling the truth and they know what their patterns are, right? So Donald Trump is one of those people. Real clinical narcissism and a narcissistic personality disorder isn't someone who is so childlike that they're not aware of their patterns and they're just making something up to try to make themselves feel better. That's being emotionally immature, and that is a kind of narcissism. But narcissistic personality disorder is someone who knows and intentionally uses language, and in fact they'll even fake behaviors to try to create a fake narrative that will draw people in, and then they use language and their fake behaviors to manipulate. And in the end, they just want money, or they just want power, or they just want sexual satisfaction, or whatever. Right? So there are those there's the one fundamental way that you can use language with fidelity to try to reflect as deeply as you know who and how you are, and to use language to negotiate with other people, and to receive information when they're like, hey, the way you reflect is a little bit off from how you actually present, right? And that gets complicated because that person might be a little bit full of shit or a little bit off, or they may not use language, or they may be projecting their stuff onto you. So it's a lifelong pursuit, a ninja-like discipline and pursuit of knowing yourself well enough to be open to hear other people reflect to you through language where they think you might be a little off or maybe significantly off. And this is why speaking non-judgmentally and being really kind and loving when you offer this is because if a person can't absolutely trust that you have good intentions and that they're trying to see you, we're immediately going to go to the fear that they're one of these other two kinds of people who either is unaware of their own patterns and uses language to cover for themselves, and then you get manipulated because you're trying to take their input and feedback, or even worse, someone who's a full-blown narcissistic personality disorder or a sociopath who not only uses language but also fakes behaviors to manipulate people around them and to create a narrative that they can then leverage in order to get something that they actually wanted in the first place, and they're doing it consciously, right? So without going into all the complexity that can happen with language and with behaviors and with self-knowledge and not having self-knowledge, and some people are emotionally immature and they're just not aware of their patterns and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I very quickly summarized that. Let's come back to the equation, and then I'll tell you how I think this is fitting into everything. The equation is there's people who have a certain amount of self-knowledge and know who and what they are and what their patterns are and what they're creating. And then they use language with fidelity to the best of their ability to use language to reflect who and how they are and what they expect from other people. Then there's people who are emotionally immature, who are unaware of their patterns and what their patterns create. And then they create some fake verbal reality to just try to convince themselves and others that they are this thing that they want to think that they are, that they create what they want to think that they create. So in that case, there's a significant disconnect between the reality presented by their words and sometimes temporary behaviors, people who fake behaviors or they act super, super nice on the first date or like whatever, right? They create a behavior that creates how they want to be perceived versus how they really are. But there's that discrepancy between the reality that's performed versus what they really create. And then there's the sociopaths and the narcissists, narcissistic personality disorders, who are fully aware of what they create and what other people create and how people work and how they work. They're fully aware of what they want, but they're never, ever, ever honest. They're always using faked performative behaviors and words that lie to create a temporary reality that manipulates people long enough that they're able to extract what they want, and it's always based on their needs, their sexual satisfaction, their feelings of self-worth from gaining power over people or controlling other people, or getting their resources so that all of their needs are met. It's always manipulative and it's always self-serving and selfish. Okay? So that's the equation. You have those three things that can go on with people. So here's the challenge for me, the challenge for you, and what I think is going on in the whole world. In couples therapy and in therapy in general, we all get caught up in the content of verbal dialogue. Well, this person said that and they were being mean, or like we have this disagreement about how much money should be spent, or I think we should live here. And we get all caught into the content. I'm telling you this now as a therapist. 90%, if not more, of your conflict and discomfort in relating to other people is not because you disagree on the content, if it's honest. Right? If there's something honest, if one person in the couple comes and says, hey, I need a sexually open relationship, I need to have sex with other people, and the other person is like, I'm not okay with that. We've been married for 10 years, that's never going to work for me, and the other person is like, look, I'm stifled, it's never going to work for me to be monogamous. The content itself is actually the problem in that situation. They're both being honest about how it is and what it is and how it works, but there's an actual conflict. And I'm sorry for those people. That's really difficult. And you may work that out with a therapist or whatever, or you may not work it out. You may go your separate ways. But the content itself is the actual conflict. That is so rare. Listen to me. That is so fucking rare. 99% of your discomfort and conflict and confusion in relationship to other people is that either you or them or both of you have some discrepancy between performative behaviors and how you verbally, the reality that you try to present verbally. There's a significant discrepancy between that reality, which isn't real, and your actual energy and the pattern of behaviors that come from your actual energy or that other person. There's a discrepancy, and it might be because they're emotionally immature. But your fatigue and your irritation and your mild chronic depression or your discomfort that my body gets uncomfortable when that other person is around is because when that other person interacts with you, there's a consistent disconnect between what they actually create from their consistent pattern behaviors and what they say they're creating. It is the disconnect that hurts you. It's the disconnect that bothers your body. It's the disconnect that fries your nervous system. It's the disconnect that creates cognitive dissonance and makes you feel like, I feel confused in this relationship. This person seems like a good person. I don't get it. Okay, they can be a good person and they can not actually consciously have malintent. But if they're emotionally immature and there's a significant disconnect between the patterns in their behavior created by their basic energy and their basic unconscious intentions and what they say they're doing and how they expect people to interact with them, just like someone who hasn't earned a certain level of expertise in a field, but they walk around posturing and pontificating as if they're an expert in the field, there's this disconnect. And you're going to feel uncomfortable. Like, you may not even be aware of it. You might feel like, I don't know why this person annoys me. Like, I don't know why I don't feel like speaking to them about this thing. Well, it's because your body feels that they're full of shit. They actually haven't earned that level of expertise in that field, but they keep talking like they have. And it bothers your body and it bothers your brain. They don't have to be a bad person. They can just be full of shit or emotionally immature. Right? The sociopath, the toxic, clinical, narcissistic personality disorder, they are actually intentionally using performative behaviors and disingenuous language to create a reality that will position you very skillfully such that they're able to get out of you what they wanted to meet their needs or to make them feel powerful or just to get control, because sometimes sociopaths just like to play with people for the fuck of it because it feels good, it's entertaining for them, and it's fun. Your brain and your body are your quantum interacting mechanisms, and they don't like that separation. They hate it. And as your consciousness raises and as you become more aware, you will become aware of the ways in which you use performative behavior and language to lie to yourself about what your actual energy is and what your actual patterns create. For example, I do have an exceptional skill and the ability to frame ethical conflicts and things. And I do have maybe a somewhat uncommon perception, and I have had since I was a kid. But I was hiding a moral arrogance and cruelty and condescension that actually made me an immoral being. It actually made me, I was behaving immorally and applying that to everyone, and also lying to myself about the ways in which I behave immorally, that I'm morally sloppy, that I don't live according to what I know to be true, to be morally right. And that makes me more full of shit than someone who's just not aware of it. If there's some person who's just not aware of how torturous and full of shit and disgusting the industrial meat production is, there's no way you can buy organic, you can not, it's just bullshit. If you're not aware of that, you're not actually behaving immorally. I was, because I knew. I knew because my father worked in that industry testing slaughterhouses and blah, 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 and I knew. So I was immoral and I was hiding it. So there was this disconnection between my actual behavioral patterns and what I presented. And I was also presenting, and then I would quietly talk as if I was morally superior, or even just feel that I was morally superior and I was really angry at the world, blah, 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 blah. I was full of shit, right? Now I'm using my actual behavioral patterns, and I'm using language with some fidelity to share with you honestly that was true. That was a discrepancy with me that I had to address and am addressing. Because I want to be genuine and honest with you. I want you to have actual genuine contact with me, and I want to have actual genuine communion with you. And there's no way to do it as long as I'm lying and presenting some reality that isn't the reality. Well, then you might participate with that, but that's not me. That's not really me. That's some bullshit I made up. So I'm not getting communion with you. Or you might see that I'm full of shit, and then you're uncomfortable because you're like, I don't know, like he wants me to interact with this reality that he verbally creates, but this is where he's really at. I can feel him energetically. I can feel how this works, and I'm like, you're going to feel uncomfortable because you have an awareness that I don't have. Okay, we can make lots of space for that if people show a consistent and genuine desire and attempt to maintain fidelity between their performative behaviors and their verbal behaviors and their actual energy and the actual patterns of their behaviors. We can make lots of space and be very forgiving and very loving and patient. But in relating to other people, but let's stay with other people just because it gets complicated. In relating to other people, 99% of your discomfort and inner agitation, a frustration, a fatigue, cognitive dissonance, a wondering of like, I don't get it, I don't know, like I talk to this person and I never quite feel connected to them, or I leave always feeling a little anxious or a little triggered. What is it? Do I have trauma? No, not everything is your trauma. That person has a significant disconnect between their actual energetic state and the patterns created by their behaviors from that, and their performative behaviors and the language that they use to create some perception of themselves. And that is such a significant disconnect that it's not possible for your brain and body to resolve it, because you're trying to take both those things in and create some kind of reality out of it that's palatable and then to relate to them. But if you take that in your body, it's just going to create agitation and conflict. And then you're going to blame yourself and go, what's wrong with me? And I'm very anxious. And why? No, you're not. You're not very anxious. That person has created this significant disconnect that you can't resolve, right? And then someone like Trump, I'll state this directly, having family members who were posting pictures of him with Jesus behind him like he's a Christian. The level of disconnect that you have to have from your own body and your own self to ever in the universe in all infinite time think that Trump believes in Christianity. It's not about how massive of a liar he is. It is that you have to be disconnected from your own body and your own truths so massively that the disconnect between what his mouth does and his performative behavior does and what he's doing, which is to pad his ego and to pad his pockets and to like whatever. And every once in a while he does something good for the country because what's good for the country happens to align with his ego. Like whatever. Like I don't care. Whatever. Right? And so here, without like, okay, I got a little political, but let's rein it in. Let's bring it back to the primary point, right? You have that model. People with fidelity between their energy and basic created behaviors and their verbal expressions and their performative behaviors. And then people who are emotionally immature and in denial about what their basic energy is and what their behaviors create as reality versus their performative behaviors and their verbalizations. There's a significant difference, right? So if you try to interact with them and try to resolve those things in your body and your brain, you're going to experience agitation, fatigue, nervousness. You're going to start accusing yourself. What's wrong with me? Why am I not comfortable this way? Blah, 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 blah. No, there's a discrepancy. And then people who are sociopaths or toxic clinical narcissistic personality disorder, in which they intend the difference because they're using the difference to manipulate, and the difference is so massively severe that it's almost world of opposites, right? It's world of opposites. Okay, you have this model. So my relief was, part of the reason there's so much agitation and violence and it seems like everything is going to hell is not necessarily a bad reason. It's because many of us, many of us, many more than those liars expect, and the dissemblers and the disingenuous people and the unaware people who refuse to take responsibility for their behaviors and their behavioral patterns. Many of us are waking up to how full of shit the entire thing is and has always been. And I don't mean in some exalted woo-woo like I'm enlightened. I'm not enlightened. But I mean just simple, basic humanity of these glaring, massive disconnects between what is presented to us as true and what the patterns have shown up to be true. So again, go back to black people in the United States. You had this horrific trade of torture, rape, and abuse, dehumanization of humans, ripped from their homelands, taken in ships where if they got sick or misbehaved, they just toss them over, let them drown, whatever, bring them here, break them, take them to the islands and literally break them, rip them, whip them, work them until they're broken and have no will or autonomy left. And then force them to copulate with whomever and then sell their children because now you have a marketable product. Take all of that and then okay, so there was a civil war. We literally had to have one of the worst wars in American history to try to end that. And then you continue with gerrymandering and all of the lynching and blah, all of this. And then the clear pattern where it's stunningly obvious that police interact differently with black people, especially young black males. It's stunningly obvious where some white kid at 20 years old will be a murderer, will shoot up a church, and they'll usher him out with handcuffs on and buy him a burger on the way. This actually happened. Don't bullshit yourself. And then some black kid, 20 years old, is scared and runs away, and they'll just light him up and shoot him in the back, and then you'll find out it was just a regular kid, and they'll go, yeah, but he smoked pot. There's pictures of him on Facebook. Okay, so some of us are actually like, we're done with this shit. We're done arguing about it. We're done talking about it. We're done with this bullshit. There's a stunning, massive reality of how we abused people, or that we massacred the natives to this land. I'm not saying I have the answer, but we're just tired of fucking lying about it. We can't do it. Our brains and our nervous systems are not capable any longer of sustaining the massive cognitive dissonance. Can't do it. I'm not enlightened. I'm not a good person. I'm not better than anybody else, but I can't fucking do it. I can't have the conversations. If you're going to sit there and mealy mouth and play games and pretend that white America didn't create 90% of the reality that black America lived in and create massively negative outcomes and suffering for black people, you got to just shut the fuck up and go away. Because that level of intentional foolishness and ignorance, my body can't take it. My brain can't take it. I can't do it. I'm not better than you, but I can't do it. And what's happening is more and more and more people are waking up to this. We don't know what the answer is. We don't know what to do about it, but we can't lie anymore. We can't do it. We can't lie that it's okay that makeup companies torture animals to test their products. We can't lie that it's okay to trap a monkey and put its head in a vise and cut the top of its skull off and take it off and stick things in its brain to like we're done with this shit. We can't do it anymore. We can't pretend that there's any fucking good reason to do that shit, that you actually heal humans or it has contributed to our medicine, because it fucking hasn't, because we're sicker now than we were before. So shut up. It's a sick model. It's sick. It's sick. We can't play. We can't pretend anymore. Our bodies and our brains can't handle it anymore. So what's happening is Trump and this administration and everything that's going on, right, the absolute torture and massacre of the Palestinians, which is partially a result of the torture and massacre of the Jewish people in World War II, who the abused become the abusers. It's so boring. The abused become the abusers. The abused become the abusers. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? This is like, we can't pretend anymore, but more and more and more people are waking up and waking up. And this is the mechanism that wakes you up. The mechanism that wakes you up is this agitation and this cognitive dissonance that fries your brain and makes you tired and creates fatigue and, right? Don't hate it. If you're looking around at the world today and you're like, this is insane and I feel so nervous and agitated and I'm so uncomfortable and I don't know what to do, don't hate it, because this is the raging signal to you that your brain and your body is taking this massive discrepancy into your brain and into your body and trying to resolve it into a reasonable facsimile of a unified reality. And it can't do it because it's a fucking lie. It's a fucking lie, all of it. It's a lie that you can mass produce meat using animals that isn't just a miserable, horrific, immoral torture. It's a lie that we didn't torment and destroy the identity and the reality of black people in this country. It's a lie that we didn't massacre Native Americans and use and abuse Native Americans. It's a lie that the government of Israel is not slaughtering and torturing and starving children. It's like, well, I understand where that comes from. The abused became the abusers. I understand. I was an abused who became an abuser. I don't feel morally superior. I'm just saying people are tired of the bullshit. They're tired of the games, and the lies are becoming ragingly clear. So take this cognitive dissonance, this nervousness, this anxiety, this agitation, and go, no, it's just your body telling you that there's a massive discrepancy between what's being presented to you and what's actually true. Okay? So here's this mechanism. Start evaluating, is there a performative behavior and a verbalization that's significantly disconnected from the actual patterns of behavior that create an actual reality? Is there a significant difference between the performative behaviors and the verbalizations that are so different or in opposition to the real patterns of behaviors and actual reality outcomes? Is there a difference? That's what's being indicated to you. And is that difference being used to manipulate? Are you being broken down and exhausted so that you can be manipulated? Okay, here's the good news, and then I'll close. Here's the good news. The relief I felt with the realization when that model popped into my head of like, oh, this is how it works, and this is what it means, and this is what's going on in the world. The relief that comes, this doesn't mean that as long as people are entirely full of shit, that you have to suffer the agitation and the inner disconnect and the cognitive dissonance if you live in the world with them. That's not what it means. What it means is you're being shown your disconnect and your bullshit. You know why? You know why? Because it requires you being full of shit to pretend that they're not full of shit. And if you will just let the thing be what it is, right? The example I use is black people in America. I just let the thing be what it is. Anybody can throw statistics out. They can do studies. They can, blah, blah, blah. I've seen it and I know it. You can't look at a history of treating people that way who then have difficult outcomes in that country and go, well, it's really them. I don't need a fucking conversation to know that that's entirely full of shit. So then my body relaxes and my brain relaxes. It's not that there aren't segments of the population, including sometimes black people who have internalized racism, who still run that bullshit. It is that once you see it, your brain and body stops trying to resolve it. I know that my race has created significant moral rot in ourselves and weakness, characterological weakness, by what we did in slavery and what we did to black people. I know that. But once I know it and let it be true, and once I know what was done and allow that to be true and understand the relationship of my race to the relationship of black people in the United States, your brain and body stops fighting it. There's nothing to be done. If a black person comes up to me and goes, hey man, white people are full of shit, this blah, 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 it doesn't hurt my feelings. I know. I may have participated in it. I know. Like, you're not lying. You're not wrong. You're not lying. It's not the content. That may even be painful or difficult content to come to a white person and go, hey, you're part of it. No matter how good you think you are, you're part of it. You signed off on this. I signed in my life. I've benefited and enjoyed the fact that white males are treated generally with respect before anyone else. That's a fact. I'm not going to go into it, but I could give you multiple examples of when I was accorded a basic respect and authority that I had not earned, and another just because I'm tall and white and well-spoken, right? Whatever. Okay, you stop faking it and stop internalizing the two truths and trying to resolve them, and suddenly it goes away. No more agitation. Don't vilify Jewish people. They were horribly brutalized. And there continues to be terrible anti-Semitism, and they continue to be an embattled people with a lot of really negative opinions, blah, blah, blah. But just let what's true, true. The Israeli government became the psychopaths. They became the abusers, and they're torturing and starving children, and they willfully execute children. you can just let it be true. Like, look, I'm of vaguely Germanic and Danish descent, so it's, again, my people who participated in slaughtering Jewish people, some relationship of my people. I'm like, I understand how a country, a nation like Israel would become that way, but I don't feel like lying about what's happening. I don't feel like it. Fuck you. You can't make me lie about it. And the body goes, maybe that's dangerous to me. Or maybe there would have been a day and age where if I advocated for what was true about black people, that there would have been white people who would have been like, you're a race traitor, and maybe I could have been murdered, right? Like, I don't know. Like, shit can happen. There could be negative outcomes when it comes to the content. But what your body does and your brain does when you just let what's true be true, let what's true be true. Start noticing the level of agitation that your body generates based on the discrepancy or the difference between patterns of behavior that create an obvious reality versus performative behaviors and verbalizations that create this other perceived reality, Notice the agitation and, right, notice that discrepancy, and notice that if you will merely focus on the pattern of behavior and the reality that was created, and you just accept the reality and go, well, that is what it is. Do you think I like the fact that my race in this country has created moral rot in itself, and that white people weakened themselves by how they behaved, that black people literally had to take our own stated morals and force us through hundreds of years? They bled and suffered and stood up and said, yes, we believe in what you're saying. Now make it true. Yes, we believe in what you're saying. Now make it true. Do you think I like that? I don't like that, but I'll tell you right fucking now, just admitting that we were morally weak and that we were taken to school morally by black leaders in black communities, just admitting that, cool. It's so much easier. Cool. I don't dislike myself. I like things about the white race. I'm not throwing us out. Like, there are things where we're really amazing, where we have attributes that maybe other people, like, whatever. I'm not a self-hating white person. I'm just saying, just let it be fucking true. Just let it be true. It's true. It's ragingly, obviously possible. Don't mealy-mouth. Don't believe, well, but if you look at historically, and but people, shut up. Just let it be true. Stop playing games. Then you have Trump and crew, sociopaths, textbook narcissistic personality disorder, who willfully lie because they just like the control and the power, and they don't care. They're getting off on this. But also they're lining their pockets, right? They have a hatred for sincerity, for honesty, for fidelity they have a hatred. They've made a lifetime and a skill of playing the difference. And they have a massive skill, and they actually think that you're an idiot because you need the fidelity. Your body can't handle the difference. They actually feel superior. But they're going to collapse under the weight of their lies and the difference. You can trust that. They're going to collapse, and their systems are going to collapse. And that's what you're seeing. So let's couch this under the larger spiritual umbrella. What's happening is we're existing in a time in which so many people are starting to notice that their body and their brains can no longer accept this massive difference between the performative behaviors and the verbalizations, between that and the conflict with the actual patterns of behaviors that reflect a real energy and a real reality. We can't take it anymore. And they see that as weak, but that's the strength. That's our strength. that we don't know what to do exactly, but we can't take it anymore. And you're probably one of those people. If you're not one of those people, you're infuriated and you think I'm full of shit with what I'm saying. Okay, go away. Okay, you're going to die of it. That's your business. It's your life. It's your path. But if you're agitated and nervous and you feel like, wow, history has always been fraught. Why am I weak? No. You have actually elevated your awareness. You've opened your awareness to a broader reality of the human race, and you're beginning to feel in your body. Your body is starting to tell you, look at this lie, look at the discrepancy, look at it. You cannot accommodate it. You can't. It's going to kill you. You're being put in a position, you're being guided to a position where you can't handle it. Spiritually, we are at a nexus. We are at a turning point where the human race has a chance to double down on fidelity between verbalization and performative behaviors and authentic patterns and energy levels. And we can sink back into unconsciousness and accept the lies because we're scared of what the consequences are. Just like maybe I start lying about what white history is with black people in America because I'm afraid that some extreme white group is going to murder me. You can do that. You can back out. You can choose the lie because you're scared. But I think we're getting to the point where we understand even being scared isn't going to work. It's not going to work for you. You woke up and you saw it, and now you can't unsee it. That's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now. You woke up and you saw it, and now you can't unsee it. Spiritually, a lot of people are waking up right now. If you feel like you feel really scared and like what's happening and how could this be happening, what you're seeing is the lies, the discrepancy is starting to get into people's bodies, and people can't handle it, because if you have that agitation and you can't stomach it, all it's telling you is just accept what's true and you will calm. Accept what's true and you will calm. Accept what's true and let the lie be a lie, and your brain and your body will settle. Accept what's true, let the lie be a lie, and your brain and body will settle. And in the settling, we will become a spiritual community of people who can no longer accommodate in our brains and bodies the lie. Because the lie is always about separation from others, willingness to do cruelty to other life forms. The lie is that we can live in a way that's based on our convenience, even though our convenience creates misery and suffering and destroys the earth as a living entity. It's a lie. I don't know what the solution is, but it's going to have to be something that incorporates with a profound sense of respect and love and communion with all life. Whatever we invent from here on out is going to have to be driven by that, not by the lies and not by performative behaviors. It's going to have to be driven by that. And that's our challenge right now. That's the challenge right now. That's what we're doing right now. We're waking up right now. And it's choice. We can choose to be seduced back into unconsciousness, or we can choose to go, I refuse to allow fear to drive me into unconsciousness. I choose to see that there's no other way. We must have a profound sense of respect and love for me as a life form, all other life forms, and we must strive with everything we have to accommodate and to behave with respect. Any lie that sells us convenience, that costs other life forms torture, life, and misery, will seduce us back into unconsciousness. If you can no longer stomach it, and you don't have to agree with the points that I made. I'm a limited human. You don't have to agree with the specific points. Just start letting what's true be true. Notice the discrepancy. Notice how your body responds with agitation. Resolve the agitation by letting what's actually true be true and letting the lie be the lie. And then double down on what's true and take responsibility for what's true for you and for other people. and just do what's within your realm to do. For me, when I had the huge realization about that I was not living in fidelity with what I knew to be true, I stopped craving meat. But instantly I was like, I can't do it anymore. And for years, every time I ate meat, my brain would tell me, it would go, you're eating torture, you're eating torture, you're eating torture and death, you're eating torture and death. You're consuming the body of another living being that has been through horror and torture and misery to arrive at your plate. But I connected. I let it be true, and I connected, and I'm like, I'm done, I'm good, right? It will help you shift to live in alignment with what you know to be true. It will help you shift. You don't need motivation. You don't need to be disciplined. If you let what's true be true, your consciousness will shift you, and you will begin living in alignment because there's no other way to do it. This is the exciting and hopeful time in which we live. No matter how ugly it looks, it's only ugly because people are still trying to take the lie and the actual truth and put it in their brains and bodies, and it makes them sick. It makes them crazy. Stop taking the lie and the truth and putting it in your body and trying to resolve it. Let the lie be the lie. Let the truth be the truth. Align with what's true and begin behaving in alignment with what you know to be true and what you know to be true about you, which is you intend respect for self and others and all other living forms, and you will accommodate discomfort in order to offer that respect. Work from there, and the lies are not going to win. Those systems are collapsing right in front of you. They're collapsing right in front of you. That's all for now. I love you guys. See you next time.
Just for today, everything's okay, everything's okay.